You're watching Worldview Tube, a Brannon House television network.
The Tamara Scott Show. Tamara has served as the state director for one of America's largest pro-life, pro-family public policy organizations. In 2007, Tamara was named one of America's top 10 most influential kingmakers by the Religion News Association. Tamara has spent years proclaiming and defending the values of a Christian worldview that is the foundation of our constitutional republic. And now, here is your host, Tamara Scott.
Hey everybody, welcome. I am Tamara Scott. It's the Tamara Scott Show, where we help you live God's Word in today's world when the headlines hit home. Why? Because if He expects you to live through it, He has directed you how to do it somewhere in His Word. And so there is nothing that you're going to face that He will not hold you in the palm of His hand and care for you. There's nothing that you're going to face that He doesn't know about first. The Bible tells us that He knows the needs before we ask, that Jesus is on the right hand of the Father waiting to intercede on our behalf. So that is there and ready for you. At the same time, you need to know how to be aptly prepared and ready to face the dangers, the strategies, whatever you may need to overcome some of these issues. It's one thing to be saved and have eternal safety and freedom and liberty and joy, but you're responsible as well for what you have as an environment here on earth. What if you're the hands and feet God has called to help overcome evil in this world? I have a friend who wrote a book, Running for Governor. He said, if the Bible says that Jesus will return when his enemies are his footstool, maybe we should get busy and subdue his enemies. Interesting, right? Today, my guest is Dennis Beaver. We always enjoy talking with Dennis. It's fun to find people who can write so well. In fact, let's just go to his book. I think you've got the photo of the book right there on the link there, Thomas. But the book is called Endgame. Excellent book talking about whether it's famine, transhumanism, population or depopulation, the depopulation movement, the 5G, whatever it may be. After COVID, it became more apparent to so many that what we'd been saying for quite some time was actually a concern. Endgame. You can see it's just a little thinner than a Bible, about the size of a Bible, but an excellent read, well laid out for you. And that is available on Amazon. Dennis Behrman is the author of Endgame, COVID, the Dark State, Quest for Biodigital Convergence in a Transhumanist World. But he's also got background in research in a chemistry company, in the library. Oh, funny, I just lost that. So I'm going to have to go back and find it. I'll have to find the right one. So I'm going to have to go off the top of my head and probably won't do you justice. In a library and in the chemical industry, and as well, he was the past senior editor, maybe, with the New American. Always up-to-date information. Beautiful spread when he was in charge of that magazine. Dennis Beaver, thank you for joining me in my very discombobbled introduction of you.
Introduction. I always appreciate it. Thank you so much for having me on your show. It's always a great time, and I love talking to you. You always have great insights, and love to bring some discussion of what's happening in the world that affects all of us, hopefully to your audience, and maybe we can together work for a better world, hopefully through what we do here.
All of us working together, which challenge when we hear just how off base some of our fellow Americans, and sometimes even those in our party. I'm a Republican committee woman. I admit it on air. So I see this from a political and partisan point of view as well. And so there are always those steering the pot, always. And that's what we've got to remember. They're always going to try and stir the pot and separate us. And I think that stems as well from the great divider, the one who wants us fragmented, the one who wants fear, Satan. We've got to just be so so where you're hearing your policy ideas from, what you're listening to, what you're watching. You got to be so so careful. It's not to grow and to put isolationism around what you hear and don't hear. It's to be aware and know the root of where it's coming from. So, all right. I think I found my right email with all the information for today. The website. Give us your website.
AmericanDailyHerald.com. Thank you.
Yep, absolutely. All right. So yesterday I had a great guest that I absolutely have worked with for decades and just so agree with on so many issues. But he made the statement that Americans are not seeing Trump's policy right now, foreign policy, as America first. And that was a concern for, and he appreciates this president, supports this president. So, and I appreciate the honest dialogue and conversation. So it caused some concern with me. And then I said to you, what do you want to talk about tomorrow? And you said that Iran is America's first policy, America first policy. And I thought, Lord, only you can rearrange this. Only God can rearrange this calendar, and I need the assistance. So I appreciate it so much. So I've done some homework. You go ahead and start us out on this.
Well, first, let me say a couple of things to begin the conversation. First, I am generally speaking against war. It's just destructive of economies, of lives, of properties. There really isn't a lot of good things to say about war. And then in this particular case, when your guest said Americans are not necessarily seeing this as a pro-American first conflict, that's probably true. I don't think most Americans are seeing this as as America first, as a conflict that serves the needs of the American people. But we may not be well informed about every aspect of the conflict, and we may not be well informed about what the Trump administration has laid out as a very, very significant change in national strategy from all that had gone before. And I think that's really where we need to start, which is all that had gone before. And if you permit me this little bit of diversion into history, we have been living up until the advent of the first Trump administration and especially the new Trump administration. Until that time, with the intermission of the Biden administration, we've been living in the globalist era, really getting kicked off officially with the Wilson administration, although it has roots before that. But getting kicked off with the Wilson administration and World War I in particular was, our entry into that war under Wilson was specifically designed and made to happen in order to pursue an internationalist agenda to lead to the League of Nations and subsume national sovereignty, not just our own, but other countries as well. That, of course, was a faltering first start in a way for the Wilson administration, but that goal continued to be pursued by transatlantic elites both here in the US and across the Atlantic in Europe, all the way down to the present day until, as I said, the advent of the Trump administration, and especially this new administration. So our foreign policy has always been, for more than a century, configured around pursuit of an internationalist agenda. And that has now radically been altered by the Trump administration. Whether they've radically altered it in the right direction is a question that remains to be answered, but they have radically altered it. They are no longer pursuing that specific globalist agenda that was created in the Wilson administration officially and pursued from that point forward. So now we're doing something else, and Iran is a direct consequence of that something else, as has been the controversy over whether or not the United States should have some level or maybe even complete control over Greenland, as has been the action we took to end the Maduro regime in Venezuela, as is the potential diplomatic action going on with regard to the future of Cuba right now, which is kind of in the background, but nonetheless is taking place. And of course, most notably, the action in Iran. These are all tied together, and they're all related to official Trump administration strategy documents and strategies that are being pursued pursuant to those documents that have been released late in 2025 and now again in 2026, first by the administration itself directly with Trump's signature on it, and secondarily now in 2026 from the Department of War with a document released in 2026, highlighting and extending the remarks from the earlier document last year. We're following a very much new strategy here.
It is new, and as I told you, I did some research after I knew this was going to be our topic, and I read the pros and the cons. And so I don't know if I can aptly quote which article I read what. One said that there seems to be some ambiguity on this Iran. First off, I would say that this was not a war, that this is a response. Some say long overdue. to action that Iran has invited time and again since 1979. And then Annie Cyrus, one of our hosts on this network, was on, a former Iranian survivor of Sharia law, would tell you that she went through the timeline, and even our response in Epic Fury was after they hit something into one of our air bases. So it's still a response, even more timely than what we had said earlier as far as a related response. Others are saying that there's ambiguity. Was it to do a regime change? We've said yes, we've said no. What are the goals? And some are realizing that may be Trump's strategy. The ambiguity is his strategy, not letting your enemy know what your goals are. By not setting clear goals, you have the ability to go in and leave when you feel like you've accomplished, rather than getting tied up in a long-term having to rebuild a nation, which he said he doesn't want to do. And I think taxpayers are a little tired of that as well, especially in that region when you build, what was it he said, an airport, and they blow it up within a few years. So I think that's one strategy that people may be confused about, right? Not understand the way this man thinks. It's 12:14. Let me go ahead and take us to break if I can. I'll give you 30 seconds to respond to that if you want. I'm sorry, I'm throwing Thomas all kinds of curveballs. I'll give you 30 seconds to respond to that. We'll go to break.
Very quickly, I agree with the new change in approach to war making, if you will, because previously there was a lot of information that was promulgated officially and through leaks from our top officials and administrations, and we really weren't serious about war fighting, and I think that put our soldiers at risk. And I think Trump and his administration and the people in charge now are doing this the right way, maintaining operational security to a greater degree than before and not telegraphing what they're about to do or why they're doing it exactly. And that gives our soldiers and sailors a little bit of a relief from information that puts them in harm's way. And it's no different than we used to say, loose lips sink ships back in World War II. Don't talk about these things if you know about them. Security matters.
Absolutely. Dennis Behrman is my guest. We're talking about the Iran action that America is taking. Is it America First policy? Stay tuned. I need to tell you about our Bella Grace. The slender little sachet has the elixir with the collagen, astaxanthin, and cat's claw. In 2022, got an award for helping with cognitive function, and in 2023 in the sports arena for active ingredients, nutrition, and format. But the best is what we hear from so many of you. You have noticed better joint health, improved mobility, less eye strain and fatigue, helping with computer vision syndrome, visual acuity, depth perception, alleviating dry eyes, but also helping with your immunity, your stress management, endurance, less fatigue overall, not just eye fatigue, muscle recovery, mental clarity, focus, and gut health. Then there's the fun list. The firmer, smoother skin texture, fewer fine lines and wrinkles, improved skin elasticity, decreased age spots, more even skin tone, improved skin hydration, reduced oxidative stress, healthier nails, less cellulite, hair health, better sleep. Who wouldn't want any of those? Call them beauty items if you wish, but who doesn't want to feel a little bit better or more confident when you're going to present in the public square, when you're going to speak at a city council? And who just doesn't want to feel a little healthier? Maybe they're just byproducts of being healthier. More information at tamara.bellagraceglobal.com, tamara.bellagraceglobal.com. And my guest is Dennis Behrman. So glad you could join me. We're talking about Iran. Is the work we're doing across the globe the foreign policy America First? Dennis, thank you for joining me today.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me on.
All right. One of the articles I read was from, I believe it's called Newsline. I don't know Newsline. I kind of felt like it was from a moderate or anti-Trump position, and I think I might be right in that. But there were even still nuggets of truth when they said the 2003 Iraq invasion required UN debates, weapon inspections, a coalition of the willing, maximalist theory of democratic transformation, all of it slow, visible, committed to objectives it could never achieve. The ideological objectives created mission creep by generating new obligations. An ongoing war was required. Ongoing war has required none of that. The ongoing war has required none of that. They talk about the difference between transactional and transformational. The transformational generates obligations outlasting the operation. The transactional defines success narrowly enough to declare victory and move on. I think that's probably a positive. I don't know if they meant it that way, but I think the American people are probably okay with that. Your thoughts?
Yeah, and that aligns with the Trump goals in the way of doing things. Actually, the limited engagement to achieve certain ends and move on. I don't think Donald Trump and his administration would have a whole lot of interest in taking over Iran and restructuring it and exporting to them a new form of government and setting it up and a paternal leader for that for that 25 years. I'm pretty much sure I can guarantee that the Trump administration has no interest in that. On the other hand, what the Trump administration does have an interest in, and we have this documented, we have it from them directly, they have an interest in making sure that there are no global hegemonic power bases that rise up to threaten the American people, and they have an interest in making sure that doesn't happen regionally in important regions either. And Iran actually is, I think, falling into both cases. First, it is a regional hegemon in the Middle East and has been for a long time. And none of the Middle Eastern allies that we have, any of them, whether they're Israel or the Arab states in the Middle East, most of them have no interest in seeing an overpowering Iran. They put everyone at threat there, including countries like Saudi Arabia, for instance. They're no friends of Iran. The regime has been unfriendly to Saudi Arabia, and the Saudis are not in favor of continued Iranian threats. So the Saudis are actually encouraging us, behind the scenes apparently, according to reporting I've seen, to put boots on the ground. Whether or not we'll do that, we'll see probably in the next few days, later this week. We'll see how that develops. But the Trump administration gave us some insight into what they're doing in November 2025 when they released the official national security strategy for the country. And it made a very clear departure from the globalist foreign policy of the past, in which it said, after the end of the Cold War, American foreign policy elites badly miscalculated America's willingness to shoulder forever global burdens. And it continued saying, those elites placed hugely misguided and destructive bets on globalism. That's ending now. That's not the Trump administration's policy moving forward. Those bets are over. And instead, what the Trump administration wants is a secure Western Hemisphere, taking foreign influence and dangerous regimes out of the picture in the Western Hemisphere. So you see that's Venezuela. And Venezuela is not divorced from Iran in any way, shape, or form, because Venezuela was tied in with our larger foreign adversaries, specifically Russia and China. And so converting Venezuela from an adversary state in this hemisphere to a non-adversary state was really important for cementing American security vis-a-vis those countries, but so is Iran. China, for instance, has received a majority of Iran's energy supplies over the past several years. So interdicting that has been a key way in which American security vis-a-vis China in the Indo-Pacific, which is a key Trump administration policy, which is to secure our Indo-Pacific relations, that is right directly related to what we're doing in Iran today. And in particular, the Trump administration has been very clear that the Strait of Hormuz in the Middle East is of direct security relationship to the United States. And in its national security strategy, he said this specifically about Iran: America will always have core interest in ensuring that Gulf energy supplies do not fall into the hands of an outright enemy. I think you can tell who that is being referred to there by clear terms, Iran, and that the Strait of Hormuz will remain open, that the Red Sea remain navigable, and that the region not be an incubator or exporter of terror against American interests or the American homeland, and that Israel remains secure. Clearly, Iran has for a very long time, since 1979, and the revolution that put many Americans in hostage situation, that resulted in our embassy being bombed later on, and all kinds of depredations throughout the Middle East and terror networks springing up sponsored by Iran. Clearly, Iran has been a dangerous enemy in the Middle East, not just to its neighbors, which has been a dangerous enemy to its neighbors, but to our interests there as well. And because it has been closely aligned to Russia as well as to China, diminishing Iran's influence and its ability to export terror, its ballistic missile program, and its pursuit of nuclear weapons, removing all of those threats, the Trump administration clearly sees as a pro-American foreign policy. And whether we understand that as American citizens is a good question. I think our media has obfuscated this fact quite successfully. So many Americans are not really aware of the strategic situation with regard to Iran in its bigger picture. But degrading what Iran has the capability of producing in terms of nuclear weapons down the road, and probably not very far down the road, ballistic missiles, which could reach as far as some portions of Europe already. You've already seen the reporting that we've had ballistic missiles fired as far downrange from Iran as Diego Garcia. Those missed apparently, but they've already got some pretty reasonable ranged ballistic missile capability. Top of those with nuclear weapons and continued development, you've got a real problem there, not just for the region, but for our allies and for ourselves throughout the world. So clearly the Trump administration sees this as a pro-American war, that the alternatives in terms of letting Iran continue this development path versus doing something to put an end to it, those alternatives were clearly in favor of taking military action. And so that's what we're doing. This is going to be very consequential in the future if it is successful, which we do not know for sure yet what that success will look like. But so far, clearly looking at just on the ground situation, our military has done an amazing job in degrading Iran's capabilities.
Precision, absolutely precision in their missions from what we've seen. All right, what you were reading, was that from the National Security Strategy? What you were reading?
I was
there
quoting
earlier?
directly from the National Security Strategy of the United States, published by the Trump administration, November 2025.
And that came out, as you said, November 2025, long before this issue in Iran. So it's not written to justify what we're doing in Iran. It was written before. And let's remember, from about December, January, February, Iran was slaughtering thousands of their own people. Thousands of their own people. The oppression was not just oppression anymore. It was genocide, and it was massacres, daily massacres, in the most horrendous, horrific way. It wasn't just shooting them. We've seen photos of hanging them upside down in plastic bags with people wreathing, trying to breathe while they're taped in these bags, so that it prolongs their suffering until they suffocate and die. We've seen others, the stoning. And someone said to me, why did you post this? I'm disappointed in you. And I said, exactly why it needs to be there. Sorry you're disappointed, but if you don't want to see it, you need to understand it's happening. And none of us should ever have to witness it, ever, on any country on the globe. So I want people to understand what we're up against. These people don't think like we do. And so I also want to touch on this. You're talking about the threat. It is not just the region anymore. This is from Jerusalem Post. And they said that America First is not a license to look away. It's a mandate to act before the threat arrives. And October 7th was not simply a tactical surprise. Every Israeli security professional understood the threat was building. And so it says between October 23rd and November 23rd, that's not a long span, Iranian proxies attacked U.S. forces more than 180 times. 3 Americans were killed, more than 180 were wounded. The enemy did not de-escalate, it took notes. And so to those who are saying that they'll support our participation, we've got some polls on that, maybe polling that was done by Politico, we'll maybe pull in the next segment. It depends how many lives are lost, whether or not they support the effort. And another poll we talked about, it was whether or not gas prices go up, whether they support the effort. This is our future we're talking about. It's not just humanitarian. Others are saying that we don't have any obligation to go in and help others, whether they're being killed or not. It's not America's nature, but when it's something that's focused on us, trained on us, and as you noted, Venezuela showed that the Iran war, America was no longer confined to the Middle East. They were after us, and their infrastructure was moving closer to us. So, all right, 3 minutes left. I'll give you a chance to talk on that, but I think this is Jerusalem Post, a pretty good idea. Oh, and as well, let me just say, at the Panama Canal, Hezbollah operatives mapped vulnerabilities in one of America's most critical trade arteries. The New York Hezbollah cells surveilled JFK Airport, federal buildings across Latin America. DEA documented network flooded American streets with cocaine and channeled profits into weapons and terrorism. And our own Frank Gaffney was just telling a story on another network about a woman in a hijab actually taking photographs of one of the bridges, getting the structural components. So, and when they followed the lead and went to wherever she was, there were all kinds of weaponry, and the Muslim Brotherhood was involved. I'll put that. I'll try and put that. I'll put that on my Tamara Scott Show page. It's another podcaster, but I think it's worthy for everyone to note. All right, before we go to break, I'll let you interject.
Well, very quickly before break, these are not theoretical threats that are taking place just somewhere, far over the horizon, thousands of miles away in Iran or the Middle East. But we really have the potential for really discouraging, frightening, damaging, deadly attacks here right in the United States. And maybe when we come back, we can talk a little bit about what has happened at Barksdale Air Force Base.
All right, we'll be right back. Dennis Buren, stay tuned.
Do you like drinking toxins that could cause cancer, inflammation, and all kinds of other autoimmune diseases? Of course you don't. Well, much of our water in America is full of toxins. That's a proven fact. WorldviewWater.net. WorldviewWater.net is your solution so that you can drink good, clean water. In fact, I give it to all my 3 fur babies, all my 3 dogs. I have one under my kitchen sink, one of these filters, as well as on my shower. WorldviewWater.net.
This is our new NutraSwish, Numi NutraSwish. You can find more information at Numi, neumi.com/TTSS. neumi.com/TTSS, one of the products we offer because you all have different preferences and respond differently to different items. So this is our lavender. It's for ladies anywhere along your journey. No hormones in it, but if you're taking a hormonal supplement, you might want to check with your doctor. The blue is for anyone over the age of 18. It has glutathione, which is a antioxidant, helps with over 400 cellular functions, and it helps detox heavy metals, forever chemicals, graphene oxide, one of those terms we learned after 2020, and it helps detox glyphosate. The good glutathione helps detox glyphosate. Glyphosate is found in ag chemicals or lawn chemicals, and some are very concerned about possible links to cancers, HPVs, and diabetes. But the blue bottle, the glutathione, helps detox heavy metals, forever chemicals, graphene oxide, and glyphosate. Then there's the mango-colored bottle you see on your screen. Numi Neuro helps with your mind, your memory, and your focus. Now, again, after 2020, we heard something about brain fog, a term we'd not heard before. Whether it's from a virus or a vaccine, many have found relief, a little help, with Numi Neuro, the mango-colored bottle. When used with the blue bottle, it is so positive that the American Brain Council wrote about it, and it looked like an endorsement. Though we're told they don't write endorsements, it was simply a positive review of what they saw. You can find more information at Numi, neumi.com/TTSS, neumi.com/TTSS for the Tamara Scott Show. Why? Because we want you feeling your best. And when you use that TTSS link, you help us be our best. Dennis Buren is my guest today. Dennis, you were going to take us to an Air Force base.
Yeah, so Barksdale Air Force Base is in Louisiana, and it's home to some of our B-52 bomber fleet that can carry nuclear-armed missiles that's currently engaged not with those missiles, but currently engaged in operations in Iran. And on the week of March 9th, the U.S. Air Force told Fox News that numerous drones have been operating over the Air Force Base. Now, if you're a commercial drone operator or a hobbyist drone operator, you're not going to be able to operate a drone over an Air Force Base. That's restricted territory. And if you have a commercial license and you do that, you're not going to have your license for very long, and you're going to have some pretty steep fines, maybe worse. But these drones apparently, from sources that I've seen that are not yet confirmed, because this is still a bit of a mystery situation, these drones are much larger and longer range than what's commercially available. So we have confirmation from the Air Force that numerous drones of unknown origin, operated by unknown parties, have been operating over one of our most important Air Force bases right here in the United States. Now, it doesn't take a lot of imagination to imagine one of our adversaries' drone operations, and whether it be in Eastern Europe with Russia, Ukraine, or in Iran in particular, the Iranians have done a lot of work to develop drone capability, and they've been supplying Shahed drones to Russia, as everyone knows. And moreover, we went and copied the Shahed and maybe did some improvements to it to use against them. But Iran has been one of the innovators in offensive drone weaponry, and it doesn't take a lot of thinking before you start to suspect, well, do they have operatives here in the U.S. and that are operating these drones that have been surreptitiously shipped in here to surveil and potentially engage with our military right here on our own soil? That is a frightening possibility. Now, we've never really had to consider that type of thing up until recently, but drones open an entirely different window of possibility when it comes to military tactics. And I think we need to take very seriously the possibility that terrorist operations supplied with drones by an enemy, for instance, Iran, could wreak a great deal of death and mayhem and havoc right here if we're not careful and watchful. So this is no longer a case where we can say as Americans, well, we're watching an event take place in a war thousands of miles away and it has no direct impact here in the U.S. Let's pray that it never has a direct impact here in the U.S. But technology has changed, and now we do have to worry about that a little bit. And this comes on the heels of the 2025 drone and 2024 drone incursions that were taking place all over the eastern half of the United States, which are still largely unexplained. And one wonders exactly what the Trump administration knows about these things and how that may have figured into what's taking place in Iran today. But clearly, Iran has the ability to operate, produce, and distribute offensive drones. And they are clearly an enemy of the United States. They've made no bones about that. I'm not just saying it. They've been an enemy of the United States since 1979, as you pointed out. And asymmetrically is really the only way they can successfully, if you want to define successfully in limited terms, asymmetric warfare is the only way they could hope to ever compete on a grand scale with the United States military, with the Israeli military, and the combined might of our allies in the Middle East. If they're going to do anything to harm the United States, it's going to be asymmetric, and it's probably going to employ drones. So this is a direct threat to the United States. Whoever is doing this over Barksdale Air Force Base, this is actually should be a wake-up call to us, and it should go ahead to illustrate that we really do, as Americans, need our government to make sure we're safe overseas, and that our most deadly enemies overseas, Iran in particular, can no longer actively pursue its goals, which could very much harm us as Americans, not just our interests overseas, not just our allies, but possibly even right here in America.
Well said, very well said. I'm so glad you brought that up. The Jerusalem Post article, just to give our viewers a little more ammo when you're talking to your coworkers over the water cooler or those relatives over the Easter table coming up in just a week. This will just give you a little bit to be polite and explain some truth to them. The same article said, these are not isolated incidents that we're talking about, but parts of a single Iranian plan, one aimed directly at the United States. Tehran was assembling 3 lines of effort simultaneously, proxies and drones to strike, checkpoints to squeeze, and nuclear threshold to shield it all from retaliation. And it goes on to say, by the time Maduro was captured, the first 2 elements were already in place, only the third remained. The danger was not any single theater, but what happens when all of it connects, a regime that can strike through proxies, squeeze through choke points, and then dare America to respond under nuclear umbrella. The question is not why now, but what it will cost later when it is deeper underground, better financed, and nuclear. This is
Yeah, that was well said.
That is Jerusalem Post. So thank you so much for bringing that on. All right, more on this. Anything more you want to say on this, or I'll take us another direction with what the Council on Foreign Relations wrote.
Yeah, let's go there. That sounds fun.
Right? I mean, and I've got the polling, folks. I can show you the polling as well. I will post all these articles. They are already on the Tamara Scott Show Facebook page. I put the notice that Dennis would be my guest today. And in the comments, I just gave them all to you right there. Like them, dislike them, so you can read them for yourself. So we'll read the polling pretty soon. But let's go to the Council on Foreign Relations. And frankly, I'm going to go to my own Facebook page if I can, and just so I can read my own comments on it. Let me see if I can find it here. So in the article, first off, they're trying to shame us, in my opinion. Here's what they titled it. And they give themselves a disclaimer. They don't talk policy. This is just the author's views. And it's written, let's see, March 24th, so just recently. Trump needs a humanitarian plan for the Iran and the Middle East before it's too late. So they say, despite having an estimated $11 billion on military operations in the first week of Iran conflict, additional $200 billion war supplement under debate on Capitol Hill, and we do believe the Senate is coming along with that. And the State Department's new Bureau of Disaster Humanitarian Response has yet to articulate, never mind deploy, a coherent humanitarian strategy for the conflict. No meaningful program of the $5.4 billion just appropriated by Congress for global humanitarian aid, and no warehouse runs for tarps, blankets, shelters. Beirut's newly homeless families who have faced heavy rain and thunder on top of a renewed Israel offensive. So there's more here, as you know. They're talking about the 600,000 potential refugees from the UAE. Your thoughts on this, without having read the article? I've got my thoughts going in. Right, go ahead.
Well, that organization, as probably most of your listening audience knows and watching audience knows, has been the chief mouthpiece for the globalist elites that I talked about when we started the show, that were really running our foreign policy from the Wilson administration down to the advent of the Trump administration. So they are, of course, in older parlance, now weeping and gnashing their teeth at what they see going on, because we have abandoned their preferred foreign policy, which sought integration of the United States with the European nations into an internationalist controlled organization via the United Nations. That was what they were going for. That's what they wanted. They didn't want to see United States sovereign power deployed to the benefits, purely speaking, of Americans. They wanted to export that power elsewhere throughout the world and submerge our country under an internationalist organization and internationalist control. So, of course, they are no longer very happy that the Trump administration is doing what it's going to do and what it is doing. And they want to, as you said, at the very least, try to shame the country for not being adequately humanitarian. But, of course, their understanding is adequately humanitarian for others, but not adequately humanitarian for Americans. So this is really the crux of the matter. The Trump administration is pursuing a foreign policy to ultimately, eventually benefit and secure Americans, the American people. And that runs afoul of the CFR and what it wants to accomplish. And that is going to lead to them being very critical of the Trump administration. So we should not be shamed by that. There are going to be plenty of people working to rebuild those countries. And the countries themselves have some responsibility. I mean, they ended up in the position they're in by being enemies of the United States. And moving forward, a powerful and free America is the best friend any country could have. And that is the proper alignment of other countries with regard to their relationship with us. Better to be our friend than our enemy, because if you're our enemy, we're going to secure our borders and we're going to secure our people against what threats you pose. And we're going to do that mercilessly because the American people need to be protected. And that's the status that the Trump administration is pursuing. And it says that directly in the national security strategy. It makes it very plain that that's the way it's going to be as long as the Trump administration is in Washington.
Well said. And thank you, because I had written some comments on here and I was curious if, someone like you that I trust would agree with them. So thank you so much. You hit it on the head, in my opinion. Why is it up to America that's already put the billions we're talking about into the military campaigns that are necessary? We're putting our men and women over there. We've lost, I believe it is 7 at this point. These lives are precious. These are our lives, and our president, as you noted, that's his first mission, is the protection of Americans. But why is it up to us then to come by with the humanitarian aid to help rebuild, to help with the food, when these other countries who maybe can't do the military could do some of this, or they're closer and could offer support? And as well, I mean, it's not too far out of my memory, the U.S. aid fraud, the high millions that we hear went to all kinds of organizations that had nothing to do with humanitarian efforts. We hear of them sitting in warehouses with dictators not allowing them out to the people who need them. So I'm not convinced that's helpful to us in the least, not to mention not just our tax dollars, but where we're at right now, it would probably be something we would have to take a loan and pay interest on to do. Is that accurate?
That's 100% accurate. There's a long and sordid history of American foreign aid being diverted into ways, into endeavors and situations in people's pockets that were no way intended, at least for face value, with those programs. And the American people have been defrauded by those for decades and decades, to the tune of billions upon billions upon billions of dollars, all of which puts the United States, and it's part of putting the United States in precarious financial situation, the exact precarious financial situation we've been talking about for decades and decades, where our budgetary shortfall is tremendous and our debt continues to skyrocket. And of course, that cannot continue either. That is a direct threat to the safety and security of the American people. So the right choice, the right way for, let's use Iran as the example. The right way for Iran to rebuild after this would be for a friendly government to take the place of the revolutionary government that was there, a government that was eager to rebuild productive commercial bridges, not only with us, but with its partners in the Middle East in a peaceful way. And that type of thing with, appropriate free enterprise would tend to build an economy that would be extremely successful and prosperous for all the people in Iran and the region. Having a repressive dictatorship of the sort that's been there definitely does not make anyone better off, except for the few people running the dictatorship. And I don't think that's an appropriate type of government from an Americanist point of view, and certainly is no way to make the country there, if you're talking about Iran or anywhere in the Middle East, any country that has a repressive dictatorship. If you have that, you don't have free enterprise and you don't have prosperity for the people of that area. And if you want to have a rebuild that's successful and prosperous, then you're going to have free enterprise. You're going to have good commercial relationships with us and our partners, and that will make all the difference in the world far quicker, more efficiently, and with a better outcome than if we just open up the foreign aid spigot.
Absolutely. So well said. Dennis Biren is my guest. We'll be right back. We'll close out the hour. Stay tuned. Appreciate the conversation.
You woke up with a sore throat and a low-grade fever. You know you are getting sick, so here's your choices. You can get sicker and miss work. Try to see a doctor this week, or sit hours in a crowded waiting room at urgent care.
I have a smarter option for you. Open your medical emergency kit. Match your symptoms to doctor-recommended prescription in your booklet and take the right meds now and get well faster.
This is not a first aid kit. It's like having an urgent care in your home. It includes doctor-prescribed medications to treat over 39 medical issues like respiratory infections, strep throat, pneumonia, UTIs, and more.
No waiting to see the doctor and no standing in line at the pharmacy. It's right here.
Every home should have at least one medical emergency kit, and here's how to order.
Go to worldviewhealthcare.com. Your kit to treat dozens of common and serious illnesses is rushed to your door. worldviewhealthcare.com. That's worldviewhealthcare.com.
The emergency kit available at worldviewhealthcare.com. Make sure you don't have to go to urgent care. I got pneumonia. I didn't have to go. I took this last year. Stayed at home. Went to bed.
All right. Talking with Dennis Biren, we're talking about Iran. Is it America First policy? And so far, I think we're pretty much clarifying. Definitely America First policy abroad. I think it's long term. I think it's the strategy, the depth of this president and his administration. And thankfully, we finally have a president who is not afraid to be outside the approval of the public. Dennis, we're in our last 7 minutes. I do have a clip I can play of the President and Secretary of War Hegseth at one of the bases, I think, in Tennessee, with some good news and some praise for our troops. I could play that just very quickly if you like, but I want to give you that last clip part too. You want me to touch on that? All right. So Logan, or Thomas, excuse me. Thomas, let's start with let's start at the part where Hegseth is talking. Well, let's play the whole thing. Just go.
You deserve it. Not enough people know the dynamic nature of what you undertake on a daily basis. I get a chance to look under the hood and see it a little bit. When you look at the logistics and the coordination that it takes to sustain what's happening in Operation Epic Fury, no other country on planet Earth could even remotely come close to what you do, to what you execute, and how you execute it. But ultimately, I couldn't be more grateful for the commitment that all of you make. And it's our job to serve you. And just know that at every step and every way that we can, we're here to have your back.
And thank you, Thomas, for having that ready. I don't remember, Dennis, a past presidency, other than 45, where they've been so in tune with our troops and so willing to come down to the personal level to meet the needs of our military. Your thoughts?
We haven't seen anything like that in decades. I agree with you right there. That's a nice thing to see. And, we do have a very strong military tradition in our country, going all the way back to George Washington. Our veterans and our soldiers have been our best and have been our brightest and have been our bravest and most capable. And that has never ceased to be the case. And it was borderline criminal, and it's certainly discouraging what was done to the military under some of our more recent, especially Democratic regimes, really especially the Biden regime. They really did eviscerate, or at least make an attempt at eviscerating our morale, our warfighting capability, our bravery. They really saw that the military would be an agent for the political change they wanted, as opposed to, a robust, strong military that was there to protect Americans and our property and our rights and our liberties. And our current administration, great. They really appreciate the military, they respect the military, and they support it in the way that's traditional for us as a country. And that's so refreshing to see. And it's absolutely necessary, because if the United States is going to be put first, then the military is a key part of that. Whether or not we actually use the military as we are in Iran, or whether or not we just have that and all of our both allies and adversaries understand what our military is capable of, that only helps America spread its power and influence in productive ways in the world. So a strong military, and again, this goes right into what the Trump administration released in 2025 in its national security document. A strong military is absolutely necessary for the United States to exercise even its soft power influence, whether it's with our allies or our adversaries around the world, to secure the rights, liberties, and interests of the American people.
And I'll just give you just one of the stats from that political poll, but as I said, it'll be on the Tamara Scott Show Facebook page in the comments under the post about Dennis being on today. It said that 81% of identified MAGA voters support Trump on the in 2024, but identify with the movement 61%, a rare point of alignment. Even the way they're wording things, I think they're still trying to confuse the issues and make it sound like there's separation where there's just not even separation. But I think it is key for us to always hold the elected officials accountable, but don't let the media mess with your mind through the messaging, because they're not going to be with us. They're not, unfortunately. It's just a sad reality of today. And this brings me to another point. I don't know if you want to hit or not, but he can do this abroad and at home. There are still operations going on at home to secure our safety, to remove those who are here illegally and who are criminally have records. We see, and I love this, when the left tries to do something, tries to be an obstacle, tries to hinder his good work, they won't pay our TSA agents. What did he do? Put ICE in the airports. And we're hearing videos from folks saying, my line just went from 3 hours to 5 minutes. I'm now moving through efficiently. And ICE is now able to see, it's the same thing they do on the border. And they're now seeing where there are some of the cases where they are arresting people who have been here, from 2019, had final deportation orders, according to Fox News, had been through due process and was escaping the system. Your thoughts?
Well, we've allowed for too long, especially the other party, to play politics for their own ideological points of view and to score points for their ideological points of view with important features of American life and security. And that's just not going to fly under, generally speaking, it won't fly under Republican leadership, but especially pro-American leadership. And those two things are not always one and the same, but a pro-American Republican leadership, America First Republican leadership, such as we have with the Trump administration, is really going to prioritize professionalism and getting the work done accurately and correctly for the American people. And that's what you're seeing demonstrated here. When the Democrats block something like funding for airport security, the Trump administration is going to go ahead and use that as an opportunity to show how effectively it can and should be done. And that's going to resonate with the American people in positive ways for the administration as opposed to negative, which is what the Democrats are hoping for. And Trump has been, ever since he entered politics, a master at holding up a mirror to the Democrats and showing in that mirror to the American people exactly what they are and what they're trying to do and how they're corroding and destroying America's foundations. No one's been better at it than Trump, and his administration continues that trend down to the present day.
And I just don't know if he just continually sets traps or if he just allows them, as my mother-in-law used to say, enough rope that they hang themselves. But either way, he keeps exposing, as you say, what they do and correcting it. He doesn't just seem to get into the word wars in the media. He doesn't, where past administrations, I think, have been concerned about what the media is saying and try to fix it there. He just goes to the root of the problem and corrects it while they're still fussing about it in the media. And I think that's, as you say, the public is seeing it. The public is absolutely seeing it. To everybody out there, we get war is real. We get, as Dennis said, we're not advocating war, we're not supporting war. But as I have said at our veterans event for Concerned Women for America for years, we understand that there are things that are far more evil than war. Sometimes war is necessary to stop those evils that are far greater and darker. And that's what I think we saw in Iran, who's made it known they're coming after us, willing to kill what we're hearing 50,000 to 90,000 of their own people. We have no way of knowing. Torturous deaths and oppression. So I would say to you out there, pray for safety for our troops. Pray for those who are innocent and not wanting to be part of this in the Middle East. Pray for their safety. Pray for a quick ending of this that actually takes care and accomplishes the goals necessary. Not just peace on a calendar, but the goals that disarm a country that's made itself known that it has the destruction of the globe, literally, in its strategy, in its radar. Anything else before we go?
Let's keep America strong and safe and free, because that is the key to peace in the world. Peace and prosperity, not just for Americans, but for everyone. And that's what we're hoping for. That's what we're working toward. And I think it's achievable for the first time in a very long time now that we've abandoned the globalist foreign policy that we've had up till now.
And that is America first. Live boldly, love better, laugh bigger, be encouraged, and never be complacent.